Go ahead.
Thank you. Where we left off before the break, I was asking you about your responsibilities, once you assumed the position of being the personal maid for Michael Jackson. And before I get to that, do you have your glasses?
Yes.
Is Mr. Jackson here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Okay. Could you identify him, please?
He's right here.
And the record should reflect.
Yes.
What were your responsibilities as his personal maid?
To pick up after Mr. Jackson. Anything to do with his clothes, washing his clothes, fixing his bed, cleaning his bedroom.
I'm sorry, can you speak more into the microphone?
You have to stay fairly close to the microphone to be able to be heard all the way to the back of the courtroom, if you will. Describe his bedroom suite for us, please.
It was a very big room. There was a second level to it. There was a jacuzzi on one side with a bathroom. A closet. Inside that closet was a secret closet. The other side of the room there was a bathroom also, and another walk-in closet, and there was a stairway that led up to the second level.
Were your responsibilities limited to that suite?
At one time, yes.
All right. What if Mr. Jackson was gone for a while, if he was on tour, or out of town for a period of time, what would you do?
I still had to pick up the room, as far as keeping it dusted, and brassing, and cleaning the tub. There was still a lot to do.
Were there responsibilities that went beyond the suite on those occasions?
Yes.
Did Mr. Jackson have monkeys during that period of time, or apes, or chimps, or
Yes.
primates?
Yes.
Were they living in his room?
They weren't living in his room, but they were brought into his room.
Were there cages for them?
Some, well, when I seen them, they were running around.
Did you ever see cages in his room?
I don't recall seeing cages in the room.
Were you, on occasion, required to tend to the monkeys or clean up after the monkeys?
Yes.
And describe what that obligation was.
Well, there was a little monkey, a chimp, and...
Objection. Relevance.
Relevance, counsel?
I'll withdraw the question. Let me move on. Were you the personal maid for the balance of time that you were there?
Yes.
All right. Do you know a person by the name, or did you know a person by the name of Wade Robson?
Yes.
Who was Wade Robson?
He was a little boy that used to go to the ranch, and he was from Australia.
How old was he when you saw him at the ranch?
I don't know exact. Maybe 10, 11.
Now, you have a son, do you not?
Yes.
And your son at that time was approximately how old?
Maybe 10.
About the same age as Wade Robson?
Yes.
Did your son ever come with you to Neverland Ranch?
Yes.
On many occasions?
Yes.
Did your son know Wade Robson?
Yes.
Did they, on occasion, play together?
Off and on.
For what period of time did you see Wade Robson there at the ranch? Do you recall?
Are you talking about, like, months or?
Well, for what period of time did Wade Robson visit the ranch?
Are you talking about years or just the timing, like?
From the earliest time that you saw him visit to, say, the last time you saw him visit. If you can recall, give us a sense of what period of time that was.
I would say probably 1992. I don't know how many months.
And did you see him there for a long period of time?
Objection. Vague.
Sustained.
How often did he visit during that period of time? In other words, how many separate times did he come, to your recollection?
There were a lot of times. Come maybe for a week or the weekend.
All right, and that was my next question.
Sorry.
How long would he stay when he did come?
Sometimes a weekend, sometimes maybe a little longer.
And during that period of time, where did Wade Robson stay when he was at the house, when he was at the ranch?
In Mr. Jackson's room.
Were you the personal maid for Mr. Jackson during the entire time that Wade Robson visited?
I believe so, yes.
Let me change that again. During the period of time that you were the personal maid, was Wade Robson visiting that entire time?
Yes.
Okay. I think you said among your responsibilities were to pick up after Mr. Jackson and wash clothing. Do you have a recollection as to whether or not you saw Wade Robson's personal possessions?
Sometimes.
And I asked you where Wade Robson stayed, and you said Mr. Jackson's room. Do you know where he stayed in the room?
In the same bed as Mr. Jackson.
Okay. Were there other beds in Mr. Jackson's suite during that period of time?
Yes.
Where were the other beds?
There was one upstairs I don't know if you'd call it, in like a loft.
Was that bed ever used?
No.
Do you have a recollection of ever changing sheets on that bed?
I did, just to keep it kind of up, but not always.
Do you have a recollection of anybody ever sleeping in that bed? In other words, coming in and discovering that those sheets had simply been used. The bed had been used?
Yes.
How often?
Maybe once.
During the entire time that you were the personal maid for Mr. Jackson?
I believe so.
All right. Did you know Wade Robson's parents, mother or father?
I don't ever remember meeting a father, but I remember the mother.
And where did she stay when they were there?
In the guest unit.
Did Wade Robson have any brothers or sisters who came?
Not that I recall.
Do you know if Wade Robson's mother ever stayed in Mr. Jackson's residence?
No. I recall her in the guest units.
Did you see Wade Robson in Mr. Jackson's residence?
Yes.
Do you know who Macaulay Culkin is?
Yes.
Who is Macaulay Culkin?
He was a little boy that used to come to the ranch.
Do you know during what period of time Macaulay Culkin came to the ranch?
1990, maybe, through maybe, 93.
He was there for extended periods as well?
Yes.
And by extended periods, what do we mean?
Sometimes a week. Sometimes longer.
Did he visit frequently during that period of time?
Yes.
Was he ever there during the period of time that Wade Robson was there?
I can't recall.
Did Macaulay Culkin have brothers or sisters?
Yes.
Do you know how many brothers or sisters he had?
I'm thinking maybe 7 or 8.
It was a large family?
Yes.
Did you ever meet his parents?
Yes.
Would all of them come to the ranch on occasion?
Sometimes.
Were there occasions when Macaulay Culkin came by himself?
Sometimes.
And on those occasions when he came by himself, how long, typically, would he stay?
The weekend. Sometimes his parents would show up later and they'd be there maybe a week.
How old was Macaulay Culkin when he was visiting the ranch during that period of time?
Maybe 11. 10 or 11 maybe.
At the earliest, you gave us a period of time that was over 2 or 3 years. What was the youngest age you remember seeing him, as best you can recall?
Maybe 10.
Okay. Was Macaulay Culkin, do you know him to be an actor?
Yes.
Have you seen things that he's been in, movies or television?
Maybe 1.
Do you know where Macaulay Culkin stayed when he was at the ranch?
In Mr. Jackson's room.
And as I had asked previously, do you know where in Mr. Jackson's room he stayed?
In his bedroom, in his bed.
And how do you know that?
Because when I would go in the room the next day, there was just one bed that I had to fix.
Do you know if Macaulay Culkin and Wade Robson's visit would overlap on occasion, when both would be there at the same time?
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat it?
If their visits would overlap, if they would be there at the same time. Do you have a recollection of seeing Macaulay Culkin and Wade Robson there at the same time?
I could have.
Do you know where Macaulay Culkin's family stayed when they were at the ranch?
Usually at the guest units.
And the guest units were a separate building?
Yes.
Do you know if his brothers or sisters ever stayed overnight in Mr. Jackson's personal residence, his personal suite?
Not that I know of.
Who is Jordan Chandler?
He's another little boy that used to come to the ranch.
Do you know what period of time he used to come to the ranch?
Maybe, 93.
Was it for as long a period of time as Mr. Culkin, Macaulay Culkin came to the ranch?
No.
Objection. Vague.
Sustained.
Can you tell us the period of time that Jordan Chandler visited at Neverland? In other words, at what time did it commence and at what time did it end, if at all, during your period of employment?
Maybe 1993 and maybe through 94. Maybe early, maybe late, actually, maybe late 93.
Who is Brett Barnes?
Another boy that used to come to the ranch.
How old was Brett Barnes when he visited?
Probably maybe 11.
For what period of time did Brett Barnes come to the ranch?
He was there quite a lot. Maybe 1993.
Do you know approximately what period of time Brett Barnes would come and visit? In other words, over what period of time, measured in months, measured in years, measured in weeks, from the first visit to the last?
I'm thinking maybe 1992 through maybe late 1993.
When Brett Barnes came to the ranch, did he come with family?
Yes.
And who in his family did he come to the ranch with?
With his mother and his sister.
Did you ever meet Brett Barnes' father?
I don't believe there was a father in that picture. I have never seen a father.
Brett Barnes has a sister, you say, who came?
Yes.
How old was she?
I would say maybe 13.
How frequently did Brett Barnes come to the ranch during that period of time?
A lot.
And by a lot, what do we mean? Would it be more than one visit a month?
Yes.
And when he came, how long did Brett Barnes stay?
Sometimes a week. Sometimes less than a week.
Where did he stay when he came?
In Mr. Jackson's room.
Where did he sleep when he was there?
In Mr. Jackson's bed.
Do you have a recollection at any time either fixing a bed for Brett Barnes that was separate from Mr. Jackson's bed or cleaning up after a bed separate from Mr. Jackson's bed?
No.
I had asked you about Jordan Chandler. When he came to Neverland Ranch, did he come with his family?
Jordan came with his mother and his little sister.
Do you know how old the little sister was?
Maybe 4.
She was a small child?
Yes.
Did you ever meet Jordan Chandler's father?
I never met. I never seen his father around there. I never met him.
During the visits when Jordan Chandler came, where did his mother and sister stay?
In the guest unit.
And where did Jordan Chandler stay?
In Mr. Jackson's room.
Consistently?
Yes.
Where did Jordan Chandler sleep when he was in Mr. Jackson's room?
In Mr. Jackson's bed.
Now, do you have a recollection of these 4 boys being there at the same time? Macaulay Culkin, Jordan Chandler, Brett Barnes, and Wade Robson.
I kind of recall Brett being there with Jordy, at the same time. And, it could have been Wade also, when Brett was there.
Would that have been a common occurrence?
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
Not always.
Do you understand, not always?
Not always.
Do you have a recollection of specific events of all of them being there together or the 2 or the 3 that you mentioned?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
I just recall seeing them there at the same time, Brett and Jordy.
Brett and Jordy?
Yes.
Do you know how many times you saw Brett and Jordy there together?
At least 2 times.
During the entire period of time that you worked as Michael Jackson's maid, personal maid, was it a frequent occasion that there would be one of those 4 boys there?
Yes.
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. The answer was, yes. Next question.
Was there ever an occasion that one of those 4 boys was there and did not stay in Michael Jackson's bedroom and bed?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Was there ever an occasion that you personally witnessed during the time that you worked as his personal maid when any of those 4 boys stayed, and you were on duty, where they stayed in the guest house and not in Mr. Jackson's bed?
No.
As part of your obligations and responsibilities as the maid, did you clean up in the bathrooms?
Yes.
Was there a jacuzzi in the bathroom?
It wasn't in, yes, but.
Am I describing the room incorrectly or inaccurately?
Yeah, because it wasn't really attached. It was just one room where the jacuzzi was, and off to the side there was a bathroom and a shower.
Just 1 second. During the period of time that you were working as Mr. Jackson's personal maid, did you ever see behavior by Mr. Jackson toward any of these boys that concerned you?
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
And which of the 4 boys are we talking about?
Macaulay Culkin, Brett Barnes and Jordy Chandler.
Alright, let's begin with Macaulay Culkin. What is it that you saw that concerned you?
I was coming out of the bathroom by his bedroom, by Mr. Jackson's bedroom. I was cleaning that bathroom. And when I came out, I saw Mr. Jackson and Macaulay in the library, and Mr. Jackson was kissing him on his cheek, and he had his hand kind of by his leg, kind of on his rear end.
Did they know that you were there?
I don't know.
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you announce your presence to them?
No.
Where were you at the time you witnessed this?
I was coming out of the bathroom by Mr. Jackson's bedroom.
Alright, is that on the first floor?
Yes.
Is that where you were?
Yes.
Were they on the first floor as well?
Yes.
Did you note that they were in the room or had come into the room?
No.
Were you surprised to see them?
Yes.
Had you been cleaning in that room?
In the bathroom?
Yes.
Yes.
How did you come upon them? How did that happen?
I was leaving the bathroom, and when I walked out of the bathroom, I looked up and I saw.
How far away from you were they?
I don't know the feet. It was a little distance.
Between the distance that you and I are at this moment?
Maybe a little further.
Alright, let's say to the back rail over here, behind me?
Probably a little further. Maybe a little further.
Second or third row?
Maybe second row.
Okay. And for the record, could we say that's 30 feet, 25? The second row?
I'm not testifying. Laughter.
How far do you think that is in feet? Do you have any way of knowing?
No.
Alright, you did not hear them come into the room?
No.
When you got to the position where you saw them, were either of them looking at you?
No.
Were either of them facing you?
No.
And you testified that you saw Michael Jackson kissing Macaulay Culkin?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Yes.
Just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The objection is sustained.
Where did he kiss him?
On the cheek.
And where did he touch him?
Kind of like by his leg, and it went to his rear end.
And how long did that last?
I don't know how long. I just walked off.
And you say you walked off?
Yes.
Walked off where?
I went to the laundry room.
Alright, were you in a position where you could do that without being seen?
I believe so.
Alright, did you literally leave the suite?
I was in the restroom and I left the restroom.
Okay. Now, can you describe that for us? How you could do that without necessarily being seen or detected in his room? You didn't have to walk by them or anything.
No, they were at a distance, so I just walked through the hall.
Did Mr. Jackson ever mention to you anything about that?
No.
Did you ever mention anything to him about that?
No.
Was that the first thing that you had seen in terms of behavior toward a child that caused you concern?
Yes.
Did you see any other incidents that caused you concern in terms of Mr. Macaulay Culkin?
No.
What was the next thing that you saw that caused you concern?
Brett Barnes.
And what did you see?
Well, I was up in the video room, and Mr. Jackson had me taking videos out of the wall. The room was a video room. It was actually a soldier room. And he had me taking all of the videos out of the wall, and there was I don't know what you call them, like wood things that would hold the videos, and they had, screws in the wall. So I was pulling those all out because he had heard that you could see down into his bedroom.
Objection. Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
So.
Just a moment. I'll strike from the point where she said, so I was pulling those out.
Alright. Why? What were you pulling out from the walls?
Videotapes.
Why were you doing that?
Because Mr. Jackson had heard that you could see down into his bedroom. There was a little cubbyhole in the back of the walls up in that room, so he wanted to see if you could see down into his bedroom.
So did you, in fact, remove videotapes?
Yes.
Could you see down into the bedroom?
Yes.
Did you show him that, or did he see that with you?
He was in his room, and where I was at was above his room, so he came up with Brett Barnes to that room.
He came up to the room?
Up to the video room with Brett Barnes.
While you were there?
Yes.
Alright. And did you show him that spot while he was there?
Yes.
Alright. Now, when did you see him doing something with Brett Barnes?
After that?
Yes. Was it right after that?
It was kind of right after that, yeah.
And where was he?
They were walking back down the stairs, and they went down through the hall by his bedroom, and I kind of followed because it was very hot up there in that room. And I was on the landing after you get on the stairs, and I kind of looked over the landing, and he was walking away with Brett to his room, and I saw him put his hand on Brett's rear end, and he gave Brett a kiss on the cheek.
In like fashion to what you described you had seen with Macaulay Culkin?
Yes.
Alright. Which of those incidents took place first, Macaulay Culkin or Brett Barnes?
Macaulay Culkin.
How far away from them were you at that time? How far away from them? How far away?
With Brett?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, not that far. Maybe from where I'm at to maybe the third row back.
Okay. I'm done estimating distances, so we'll leave it at that. Alright. Is that the only incident that you saw with Brett Barnes?
Yes.
Did you see an incident with anybody else?
With Jordan Chandler.
And when was that?
Asking about the year?
Relative to the incident that you saw with Brett Barnes.
God, I can't even think of the year. Probably, 93.
Was it toward the end of your employment there?
Maybe, a little, maybe.
And what did you see?
I was up in Mr. Jackson's bedroom and I was on the loft area, and I was dusting. And I heard the chimes go off, so I knew somebody was coming into the bedroom.
What does that mean, you heard the chimes go off? Where were their chimes?
There's like a sensor, like it rings. They're bells that ring when anybody's coming into Mr. Jackson's room. Or if you leave the room, the chimes will go off.
And when they go off, how long do they ring?
Until.
If you walk through it, it will ring for how long?
For a while. For a little while, until I guess people are out of the area where you're seen.
So once you clear, does it stop?
It will stop after, yeah.
And the chimes going off meant what to you?
That somebody was coming into the room.
Alright. Was that an unusual occurrence while you were cleaning?
What, the chimes going off?
Yes. Somebody coming into the room. If you were cleaning there during the day, would that startle you if that happened?
No.
What did you do?
Well, I was upstairs, and I heard talking, like voices. So I knew it was probably Michael and Jordy.
Now, upstairs means, there's a second bed up there?
Yes.
Like a loft you said?
A loft, uh-huh.
Were you cleaning at that time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if the bedroom door was open when you heard the chimes?
I believe so.
And what happened then?
I kind of looked down from the stairs up there a little, and I saw Mr. Jackson with Jordy, and they were changing their clothes. Like, I figured they were at the water fort. And I looked down and I saw Mr. Jackson kissing on Jordy.
What part?
His cheek, and then his mouth, and his hand was on his crotch.
What was Jordy wearing at the time?
He had pants on.
How long did that last?
When I saw that, I was quiet, and I can't even say how long that lasted.
What did you do?
I was kind of shocked, flushed, and I stood quiet where I was at.
You didn't say anything?
I didn't say nothing.
For you to go and leave that room where the loft is, you would have to walk down the stairs, would you not?
Yes.
Would you have had to have walked past them?
Yes.
Alright. What did you do?
I stayed up there very quietly. I didn't say anything. I stood very quietly, and I waited for them to leave the room.
And did they leave the room?
Yes.
How was Jordy Chandler dressed at the time?
I just remember he had pants on, and they were changing shirts. He had pants on and so did Mr. Jackson.
And when you said his hand was on Geordie Chandler's crotch, on the outside of the pants or on the inside of the pants?
On the outside.
Was he kissing him the entire time that you were watching?
From what I saw, yes.
Where exactly were you at the time that you heard the chimes?
Upstairs in the top loft.
And do you know where in that room?
Kind of by the stairs. By the stairs. I was dusting the stairs.
So right at the top landing?
Yes.
Did you stay up there until Geordie Chandler and Mr. Jackson left the room?
Yes.
Did you then go downstairs?
Yes. After I heard the chimes go off, I knew they had left, and I waited and then I left.
How long after this happened did you leave your employment with Michael Jackson?
Well, I left July. I don't know, like, the months. I know I left July 31st of, 94.
Did you ever see any incidents involving Wade Robson? You told us about Brett Barnes and Jordan Chandler and Macaulay Culkin. Did you ever see an incident involving Wade Robson?
No.
I started to ask you a bit ago about the jacuzzi. There's a jacuzzi that's located in the master bedroom suite. Describe for us where that is.
When you go into Mr. Jackson's room, right when you go down the steps, there's steps in his room. There's a restroom like on that side, like right-hand side, where if you go around his bed, there's another area where there's another restroom, and there's a jacuzzi.
How large?
Oh, God, it's big. It's big.
Would it hold more than one person?
Yes.
Comfortably?
Yes.
Was water kept in that jacuzzi all the time?
No.
What were your responsibilities with regard to cleaning the jacuzzi?
I would have to clean the jacuzzi off and on, run the water in it. But there were times when I had to let the water out of the jacuzzi.
All right. And were there things in the jacuzzi on occasion?
Yes.
Like what?
Like Mr. Jackson's undershorts, and a little boy's undershorts.
Do you know which boys had been staying there during that time?
A lot of the little boys were staying there at that time.
You wouldn't know which boys it was, the undershorts?
Brett, it could, Brett. Geordie, Macaulay. That happened frequently.
They'd actually be in the jacuzzi in the water?
They'd be in the water, or sometimes they'd be on the floor by the jacuzzi.
And these were underpants?
Yes.
And you could tell the difference between the boys' underpants and Mr. Jackson's underpants?
Yes.
Did you have to clean them?
Yes, I washed them.
Did you, on occasion, wash the children's underwear as well?
At times, yes.
If it was left behind?
Yes.
You'd pick it up and wash it?
Yes.
These 4 boys during the time that they were staying at Neverland, how was their behavior?
Objection. Vague.
As to behavior, or as to boys. I'll object to the objection as vague. Or I'll re-ask the question.
Well, it's compound, I think.
I'll re-ask the question.
All right.
During the period of time that you were working as Mr. Jackson's personal maid, did you have an opportunity to observe the behavior of the children who were frequent visitors at Neverland Ranch?
Yes.
And did that include the 4 boys that we're talking about so far?
Yes.
Did it include other children who were frequent visitors at Neverland Ranch?
Yes.
All right. And I'm not asking you questions about busloads of kids who would arrive for a day and leave at the end of the day. I'm asking about the ones who were Mr. Jackson's personal guests and who stayed for periods of time. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Was there anything about that behavior that was unique, in your mind?
Objection. Vague. Relevance, and leading.
The thing I'm having a problem with is not the vague, but the fact that you're asking about all of the boys as to their behavior.
I'll make that easier. Macaulay Culkin. What was his behavior like when he was at Neverland Ranch?
He was very, very wild.
Describe what you mean by that.
For us maids?
Yes.
He was a lot of work when he was around there.
What does that mean, a lot of work?
He was destructive. I mean, throwing popcorn at Mr. Jackson. Soda, from the top, being thrown at Mr. Jackson's head.
The top of what?
At the top of the theater. Like a projection room way up on the top.
Did you actually witness that?
Yes.
So there's apparently 2 stories at the theater?
Yes.
And does the upper story open in such a way that you can actually have contact with somebody below you?
Yes. They will. Yes.
Open in what way?
There were windows up in the top. I don't know if you call it a. I don't know if it was called maybe a viewing room. And if you were up there, you had to take a stairway to get up to the top, and you could open these windows.
What did you see him do?
He threw sodas. I had just made popcorn, because he asked for popcorn, and he wanted a soda. So I gave it to him. And he went upstairs, and he dumped it on Mr. Jackson's head, along with the popcorn.
All right. Did that create a mess?
Yes.
Mess for you to clean up?
Yes.
Was that a unique event with regard to Mr. Macaulay Culkin?
Was it unique?
Well, were you always cleaning up after him?
Yeah, but certain kids made it worse. And he was one of them.
All right. Which other kids were a problem?
Geordie Chandler.
What did Geordie do? Before I get to Geordie Chandler, let me ask you another incident about the popcorn and the soda. What did Mr. Jackson say to Macaulay Culkin when he poured popcorn and soda from the second story on top of him?
Objection. Foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
Go ahead.
It was like a joke. It was funny.
He didn't discipline him?
No.
He didn't tell him, that's inappropriate.
No.
Nor did he help you clean up, I assume.
No.
And Geordie Chandler, describe his behavior for us during the time that he was there.
He was rude.
In what way?
Very demanding.
In what way demanding?
Like if I was in the laundry room washing clothes, he'd come and say, "Where's my shirt? You know, I want my shirt. Just not nice to wear, you ask, do you have my shirt? Just kind of, give it to me now, like that."
Was his behavior like that fairly consistently during the entire time that you were exposed to him?
Yes.
Brett Barnes, how did he behave?
That little boy, he was not a rude little boy. He was pretty well behaved.
The entire time?
Yes.
Wade Robson, how did he behave?
He was kind of wild, too. Not as much as Macaulay. Just wild, tear everything up. Leave messes all over, you know. Just.
Were you ever encouraged to discipline these kids in any way?
No.
Were you discouraged from doing so?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, I was told by Norma Stackos that.
Objection. Hearsay.
Her state of mind to explain her behavior.
Sustained.
Did you ever go up to any child and say, "Don't do that. That's inappropriate"?
No.
Did you ever see any employee or hear of any employee go up to a child and say, "Don't do that. That's inappropriate"?
No.
Other than Brett Barnes, was the behavior of the 3 children that you described consistently bad the entire time they were there?
Yes.
Did that include times when they were in the presence of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Did you ever hear Michael Jackson discipline them in any way or tell them not to behave in such a destructive fashion?
No.
Did you tell anybody about the events that you saw? The 3 incidents that you testified to involving those 3 children, Brett Barnes, Macaulay Culkin and Geordie Chandler?
Yes.
Who was the first person you discussed that with?
Lawyers I had. Lawyers.
The lawyer who was representing you?
Yes.
Which lawyer was that?
Michael Ring.
Had you told anybody about those events prior to that?
I believe I talked to Kiki Fournier. I didn't even know. I think it might have been after I had left.
Now, you worked there, I believe you said, about 4 years, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Why did you leave there?
Objection. Relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
When Mr. Jackson had that Geordie Chandler molestation case, whatever, bodyguards were brought to the ranch. They weren't the regular security people. These people were called OSS, Office of Special Services. And there were a lot of these guys, and they started harassing.
Objection. Narrative. Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Well, OS stands for Office of what?
Of Special Services.
Alright, who were these people? Do you know their names?
There was one, Jimmy Van Norman, Tony Coleman, Marcus Johnson, Jerome Johnson.
Were these people armed with weapons?
Yes. Yes.
And they came to the ranch after the commencement of the Jordan Chandler investigation?
Yes.
Did you know when the Jordan Chandler investigation began?
Yes.
Was there a search that was conducted at Neverland by Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes.
Were you present at the time that happened?
Yes, but I had called in sick that day and I had to go back to the ranch.
You had called in sick that day?
I was sick on that day.
By coincidence, or you knew there was going to be a search?
No, I didn't know. I did not know. I just was sick and I called in sick.
And had anybody heard of anything in advance of that search?
No.
There had been no talk about that at all?
No.
Fair to say there was probably considerable talk thereafter?
Yes.
Were you interviewed by anybody from law enforcement during this investigation?
I
think the question that I asked was, had you been interviewed by anybody from law enforcement during the course of that investigation?
I believe so.
Alright. Did you become aware of the fact that there had been a lawsuit filed on behalf of Jordan Chandler?
Yes.
Were you called to testify in a deposition?
Yes.
And did you, in fact, give a deposition to attorneys representing both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Chandler?
Yes.
Do you remember who those attorneys were?
Larry Feldman, Howard Weitzman, and some lady named, I think, Jan Fay or...
Were you still employed at Neverland during that time?
Yes.
During the course of that deposition, were you asked if you observed any behavior by Michael Jackson directed toward Jordy Chandler or anybody else that you thought was inappropriate or any form of sexual behavior?
Yes.
How did you answer that question?
I didn't tell the truth.
What did you say?
I said I didn't see anything.
Alright, why did you say that in this deposition?
Because when I had taken over the job for Mr. Jackson's room, Mr. Jackson had threatened me.
What did he say to you?
He had told me, you know, Adrian, if you ever say or you do something that I don't like, all I have to do is tell Bill Bray or Norma Stackos, and they will take care of you, but it wouldn't come from me.
Were you concerned about that statement?
I was very concerned with that.
That was what, 3 years earlier?
That was right when I took the bedroom.
Why did you continue to work there after that statement?
I don't know. I got caught up, I guess, in, my husband was laid off, and we had a house payment, and I just stayed.
What was your salary at Neverland?
I worked 40 hours a week, but I started at $7.50 an hour.
What was your salary at the time that you left Neverland?
I left at $8.86 an hour.
In the 4 years, your salary went up $1.80 an hour?
Yes.
What hours did you maintain at Neverland? What was your schedule?
Sometimes 8:30 to 5 o'clock. Sometimes 8:30 till 1 o'clock in the morning. You never knew, kind of, when you were going to go home.
Every day you went to Neverland, you didn't know if you would go home at 5 o'clock?
Right.
How often was it that you were asked to stay after 5 o'clock?
There were a lot of times.
In a week period, how many days in that week would you expect to stay after 5 o'clock?
You just never knew. It depended if there were guests. Sometimes it could have been 2 times. 3 times. You just didn't know when you were going to go home.
And you could stay actually until the early morning?
Yes.
And then come back the next day at 9 o'clock?
Yes.
Were you ever asked to work weekends?
Yes.
If you were asked to work on an evening or on a weekend, and you didn't want to, would you just simply say, I can't do that tonight?
No.
Why?
Because you were scheduled and you had to show up.
Now, you started talking about OCC, OS. A little dyslexia here, excuse me. OS. And you named the people who were involved in OS, is that right?
Yes.
Up until that time, had there been people armed at Neverland?
No.
Were each of those people armed with weapons?
I believe so.
How was their behavior toward you?
They were terrible.
How did they behave toward you? What did they do?
Jimmy Van Norman would.
Objection. Vague as to time and individuals.
Let's begin with Jimmy, then. I'll withdraw the question. Ask you specifically about Jimmy Van Norman. Alright. And from the time that he came on working until the time you quit was approximately how many months?
I would say maybe 6 or 7 months, maybe.
During that time, was his behavior toward you fairly consistent?
Yes.
And describe things he would do to you, or with you.
He called my home one morning when I was still kind of asleep, and he woke me up with a phone call. And I was going to take my son to school that day. It was a Monday, I remember. And he said, Adrian.
Objection. Hearsay.
Goes to her state of mind and explaining her conduct.
The state of mind being why she left.
And commenced a lawsuit.
All right. I'll overrule the objection.
All right. What happened in this call?
He called my home early in the morning, and he said, Adrian? And I said, yes? And he says, you sound different. And I said, well, I just woke up, you know, I hadn't had coffee. My voice was a little bit rough. And he says something about what kind of underwear I wear, and when was the last time I got it, that apparently I needed it.
Did you recognize the voice when he called?
Yes, I did.
Did he have to identify himself?
No, he didn't, but I knew it was him.
What did you do when you said that?
I changed the subject, because I thought maybe Mr. Jackson needed something and maybe he was just calling to get Mr. Jackson to talk to me or something. I didn't know.
Did he ultimately communicate a message to you from Mr. Jackson?
Sometimes, not him, but sometimes the other ones would.
But on that occasion, that particular call, did he ultimately communicate a communication from Mr. Jackson?
No, he didn't.
Did he ever tell you why he was calling?
No.
Okay. Did you hang up that phone call?
Actually, he got another call, and the phone was ringing in the back, which I knew was a Merlin phone, because I knew the sounds of the phones, and he said, darn, I'll call you right back.
Did he call you right back?
He didn't call back.
Had you received more than that one phone call from this person, Van Norman?
I did receive another call later, and I don't know the month. Right now I can't think of the month. And it was Jimmy, and he.
Objection. Hearsay.
Same reason.
Well, you know, I'm not getting to her state of mind either. All of that testimony I let in for her state of mind I let in at your request for her state of mind.
Let me withdraw the last question and let me move on.
I need an offer as to why I've let other testimony in.
Let me withdraw that question right now and move on. Did you quit your job at Neverland?
Yes, I did quit.
Why did you quit?
Because I was being sexually harassed. I had death threats. I was being chased in the house with a stun gun. More like abuse. And mentally I could not deal with it.
Was this all the new collection of guards that had been brought in?
Yes.
Did you ever talk with Mr. Jackson about what was going on?
I don't believe so, with that.
And why not?
I believe he left. He had left later, maybe in February. And Marcus Johnson left with him with the bodyguards, but there was still bodyguards around. So Mr. Jackson wasn't really around where you could tell him, so.
What made you decide to file a lawsuit against Mr. Jackson?
When I realized that I didn't have to work in a job where I was being sexually harassed, and abused, and having to deal with death threats and.
Did you talk with Mr., who was your attorney? Who represented you?
Actually, we had Michael Gray and Michael Barber, and we had Michael Ring and Kelly Francis.
All from the same firm?
At the time, yes.
Who was the lead attorney in that case?
Michael Barber. And Michael Ring, ended up, I guess, getting out of it. I don't know what happened there, but Michael Ring ended up taking over.
Michael Ring?
Michael Ring.
Was he the one who tried the case?
Yes.
That case went on for quite some number of months, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Did you quit your job before or after seeking counsel from Michael Ring or any other lawyer?
I believe I quit my job first while I went out on doctor's care.
You were not the only plaintiff in that suit, were you?
No.
Who were the other plaintiffs?
There was Melanie Bagnall, Qasim Abdul, Sandy Doms, and Ralph Chacon.
Was there a counterclaim that was filed against you? Were you accused of anything?
Yes.
What were you accused of?
I believe I think, taking super soaker water guns. Taking candy, balloons, posters, sunglasses.
Were you accused of taking a drawing?
Yes.
All right, tell us about the drawing.
The drawing, actually, I had found it in the trash outside by the rec room. It was a trash area there. And I had taken trash out from the house, from the kitchen, and I saw it in there. There was a bag out there, and it was just open and it was a sketch. It wasn't a big sketch. It was a small sketch.
About how big?
Oh, gosh. Probably, I don't even know. Maybe about that big. Maybe like that. It wasn't very big.
6 inches by 5 inches.
Yeah.
Something like that?
Objection. Leading.
Yeah, something like that.
Sustained.
Can you give us an estimate on the record, the size of it? Because you were holding your hands out.
Maybe 3 by 5. I don't know. Something like that.
All right. You said you found it in the trash?
Yes.
Where?
Outside. Outside by the rec room. There was a trash area back there.
Did you know who did the drawing?
I didn't know who did it, but I thought, well, maybe. I don't know who did it.
Who did you believe did it?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Explains why she took it.
Actually, we're having the same problem that when Mr. Mesereau was asking questions. You seem to be going into the allegations in the complaint. The facts of the lawsuit. Which I've said we can't do. So I'm going to ask you to go into a different area.
All right. After many months in trial, was there a resolution to that case?
Yes.
What happened?
We lost.
Each of you?
Yes.
As to all counts?
Yes.
Was there a judgment against you?
Yes.
For a great deal of money?
Yes.
How much?
1.6 million.
Did you go into bankruptcy afterward?
No.
So that debt still exists today?
Yes.
You owe Mr. Jackson $1.6 million?
Yes.
Is that for all the attorney's fees and the court costs?
Yes.
Have you paid any part of that?
A lien was put on my paycheck when I was working at Sears and there was money taken out, but I don't recall how much.
Okay. Is there a lien currently on your paycheck where you currently work?
For the lawsuit?
For this lawsuit?
No.
Do you anticipate that will happen?
I don't.
Objection. Calls for speculation. Relevance.
Sustained.
Are you concerned that that will happen?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Had there been a deposition that was taken of you prior to the commencement of that lawsuit?
Do you mean like before, with Jacuzzi Chandler?
Yes.
Yes.
In the course of that deposition, did you disclose the events that took place that you've disclosed to this jury?
No, I did not.
Are you talking about the Jacuzzi Chandler lawsuit, deposition?
Yes.
Was there a subsequent, another deposition that was done in the lawsuit of your case? Qasim Abdul and everyone else against Michael Jackson and everyone else?
Yes.
In that deposition, did you disclose what you saw?
Yes, I did.
At some point during the course of that lawsuit, either before the commencement of trial or during, were you involved with others in selling a story to a tabloid?
Yes.
Which tabloid was it?
Actually, there was a man named Gary Morgan, and he was from Splash.
What is Splash?
I don't know if he's affiliated with different. I'm not even really sure. I just know that he sold stuff.
But it was a tabloid?
I believe so.
Did you actually have an interview with them?
Yes.
Did they give you money?
Me personally?
Yes.
They were, well, can I explain, because I don't.
Who did the interview? In other words, how many of the plaintiffs involved that you've identified did this interview?
Everybody was there, including our attorney.
Did he participate in the interview as well, your attorney?
He was there with, yeah.
Who is it who negotiated what would be paid?
I believe Michael Ring.
Did you have any say in that at all?
No, I didn't.
Was it understood that some of the money would be going to you, or all of the money?
From what I recall, all of the money went into a trust in Michael Ring's name in order to fight the lawsuit against Mr. Jackson.
Did any of that money actually go to you?
At one time, yes.
And how much was that?
$1,000.
Do you know how much money in total was turned over to Michael Ring?
I would honestly, my best recollection, I'd say probably maybe $32,000 or more.
And did that go to finance the lawsuit?
Yes.
Were you involved in another lawsuit at that time or prior to that time?
Yes.
What was that?
Well, it had to do with my husband's sister-in-law.
And what happened?
My husband had two half-brothers. They had different fathers. And one of the half-brothers was real close with my husband, and he ended up diabetic and he lost his eyes and his kidneys and they had him on dialysis. He went blind. And he was married, and his wife and him, I guess they had a relationship that wasn't very good. From what I understand, she started fooling around with a radio talk show guy, and she got pregnant.
Tell us what happened with regard to the lawsuit.
I'm sorry.
Who was suing who?
How many lawsuits are we going to cover? Laughter.
I'm sorry. We got sued.
Okay. For what? The resolution of his estate?
Actually, my husband was left as a beneficiary, and my husband got kind of fed up with her. And that was a family thing on their side of the family. And I kind of just got drug into it, but...
Did you have counsel representing you in this lawsuit?
No, we didn't.
Was it a jury trial?
No.
Was it a court trial?
Yes.
You were representing yourself?
Yes.
Was the other side represented by counsel?
Yes.
Was there a judgment entered against you or your husband?
I believe $17,000 from each one of us.
Was this from money from the estate?
Yes.
Did you pay that?
I made payments, and I don't even recall how much I made payments for. And then I couldn't do it no longer.
All right. Did you lose your home in this process?
No. We sold our home.
And are renting today?
Yes.
Do you know anybody in the Arvizo family? Do you know that name?
No.
Do you know a Janet Arvizo?
No.
Gavin Arvizo?
No.
Star Arvizo?
No.
Devellin Arvizo?
No.
I had asked you earlier about a drawing. Was that drawing sold to someone during the course of your litigation?
Yes.
And who was it sold to?
Well, actually, at Michael Ring's office, our attorney, Gary Morgan, had asked if we had any photographs or pictures or something, and I said, well, there's a sketch that I found in the trash. I told him, you can have it. It was just a sketch. It wasn't a Polaroid, it was just ink. And I gave it to him. And I guess he went and sold it.
Who sold it?
Gary Morgan.
And Gary Morgan is who?
He's from Splash.
Did you get any money for that?
Actually, I think I believe that's where that $1,000 might have come from.
From the sale of that picture?
I think so.
Did you represent that as a drawing that had been done by Michael Jackson?
I believe I might have said it, that I thought it was done by Michael Jackson.
Did you believe it was?
I did.
Why did you have it in the first place? Why did you take it?
Because I found it in the trash and I figured it was in the trash. So if something's in the trash, somebody might not have wanted it.
Did you take it because you believed he did it, or did you take it because you liked it?
I took it because I liked it, because I liked to draw and I thought it was pretty neat.
I'd like to show you a few exhibits, if I may. Counsel, you've seen these.
Yeah.
I'd like to show you Exhibit 797 and 798. What are those two exhibits, 797 and 798?
There. It's an exhibit of a note that Mr. Jackson had given me on an index card, along with $300.
Okay. Those are the two exhibits. One is the note and the other is what?
The $300.
It's not actually $300 you have in front of you, is it?
Half.
Well, it's a Xerox or a photocopy, is that right?
Right, a Xerox copy.
Explain what that is. Where did that money come from?
Well, I have to tell a story in order for that too.
Let me ask you a question and see if I can lead you in that direction. Who gave you the $300?
Mr. Jackson.
When did he give you that $300?
After he had read my transcript from the Jordy Chandler deposition.
Alright. How did he happen to have your transcript from the Jordy Chandler deposition?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Did you give him that transcript?
Yes, because he called me at home and asked me.
Objection. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
All strike after. Yes.
Alright. Did you have a conversation with Mr. Jackson about your testimony during the Jordy Chandler deposition?
Yes, I did.
And that was the deposition you previously told us wherein you denied that anything had happened that you had seen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Alright. In the course of that conversation with Mr. Jackson, did he ask you if you had a copy of that transcript?
Yes, he did.
Did he ask to see it?
Yes, he did.
Did you give it to him?
Yes, I did.
When did you give it to him? How long after that telephone conversation was it that you gave it to him?
I believe it might have been the next day.
And how did you happen to have a copy of the transcript?
I had gotten it earlier than the usual wait for a transcript, and I believe I had called Jan. I think her name was Jan Fay, and then they had sent it to me, but I got it earlier than you would wait for a deposition.
Had you already read that transcript before you gave it to Mr. Jackson?
Maybe parts of it.
What was your next conversation with Mr. Jackson?
Are you talking about, like, on the phone or?
Well, did you have a follow-up conversation about that transcript?
Yeah, he told me that he had read it.
Did he give it back to you, the transcript?
Actually, I got it back. I told him I was going to take it.
Did he give you anything?
Yes, he did.
What did he give you?
The $300 and the little note.
And the note says what?
It said, Adrian, thanks for everything.
And the $300 were in what denominations?
In $100 bills.
Did you see anything unique about the $100 bills?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
The serial numbers were all, like, in sequence, which was really neat, because I had never seen anything like that, and I thought that was really neat.
How did you happen to have a Xerox copy of them or a photocopy?
Because I thought it was so neat that I photocopied it, because I had never seen anything like that, you know, the sequence of bills like that.
Did you keep the money?
Actually, when he gave it to me, I called him up at the theater. He was in the theater, and I told him I didn't want the money. And he asked me why. And I said, I don't want the money.
He didn't give you the money in person?
He gave me the money, but it was in an index card and it was folded.
Okay.
And he told me to read it, to open it. It was in his bedroom. He handed it to me in his room. And I didn't open it right away, because I was cleaning. And he kept saying, open it, open it, open it. And I opened it after he left the room, and I saw the $300 and the note was all attached.
And then you called him?
And I called them. He went to the theater and I called him.
All right. What did you say to him?
And I told him, I can't take that money. And he said, why? And I said, I just can't take it. And he kept asking, why? And then he said, well, then give it to your son.
Did you do so?
I ended up giving my son some of the money, yeah.
Did you keep the balance of it?
I kept some money. I don't even recall how much.
The Xeroxes that you're looking at, the one of the note itself, does that accurately reproduce the note?
Yes.
Alright. Now, the other one that shows the $300 bills, can you tell us why it only shows half of the $100 bills?
I don't understand the question.
Well, as you look at that exhibit, do you see that only half of each $100 bill is depicted in that Xerox or that photocopy? Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
And tell me why that is. Tell me why the Xerox doesn't show the entire $100 bill.
Objection. Foundation.
Withdraw that question. Do you know why that is? Go ahead.
Actually, when I photocopied both sides, like the front side of the bills and then the back side of the bill. But in what I turned over in my deposition, the whole bills were there. I don't know why it's just half.
You've never seen that before?
I've never seen this before.
Alright. To the extent that those are three $100 bills with consecutive numbers, do they appear to be the same $100 bills?
Yes.
And they are, in fact, $100 bills with consecutive numbers, is that correct?
Yes.
I move to introduce both of those exhibits into evidence.
All object. No foundation. She did not recognize the document.
All admit the documents.
Thank you. I'd like to show you some additional photographs, if I may.
Could I see those?
Showing you a photograph previously identified as 793. Do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Kind of looks like Brett Barnes, but I'm not sure.
Do you believe that might be Brett Barnes?
Kinda, yeah.
Let me show you the photograph in 795. Let's start with 794. Two different photographs. The first with the child on the top, and the second with a number of children on the bottom. Start with the photograph with the child on the top. Do you know who that is?
That's Brett Barnes.
And then the photograph on the bottom. Do you recognize any of the four people?
I can't tell if that's Brett. He was little. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Speak into the microphone.
The first photo I believe is Brett Barnes. The second one I can't really tell.
Let me show you exhibit 795. Do you recognize anybody in that photograph?
Brett Barnes.
And where is Brett Barnes in that photo?
Right here.
Alright. Who is he sitting next to in that photograph?
Mr. Jackson.
Do you know the other people in that photograph?
I think it's Carly in the middle. They look different, though, from when I seen them.
Carly is the middle person?
Yeah, the sister of Brett.
And the mother to her on the right side of her?
Right.
We're going to break a little early. Take our afternoon break.